All right, let's jump in. We'll also thank Pentz Homes and Modist Brewing, who are our sponsors other than our patrons. They make it possible for me to cover road games. I'm going to be at the first two Aurora 1 road games, going to be at a ton of Aurora 2 games. So thanks to them for sponsoring us. We can jump in. Colette, you had such a whirlwind. Within the last year, you interview, you become the lead assistant for Aurora 1. You're the head of camps, both first-time sort of roles for Aurora. Then Nicole leaves to take a very impressive job with U.S. Soccer. You have this interim period where you have to hold down the fort, convince the players not to hemorrhage, then also re-interview. You become the head coach. And that whole process, which is just so crazy making, I can't even imagine it. What have you learned about yourself through that process of, wow, I really survived this insane chaos?
Actually, I like chaos. It's a little bit crazy, but I appreciate the process, and you learn a lot about yourself through those challenges. But other than that, I think you just be yourself, bring the skills that you've got, and there we are. So it's the beginning of a great journey, and I've really enjoyed the journey actually. And when I first took the job with Nicole, even coming in January, it actually was really nice just to have that onboarding with her and spend that first 10 to 12 weeks of learning the ropes, getting to know her and what she's built. And Nicole, we all know, has done a phenomenal job since day one of building this, and it's a privilege to take it on now to where we're going to go.
Colette, one of the things we asked you there was an open practice for media and for people to attend, so we got to see a little bit of scrimmaging. You were asked about how you integrate all these new players and keep the chemistry going. I think people asked you about the Aurora way. But another piece of that is a whole new coaching staff, right? And so first Matt mentioned, you were coming in to be the assistant to Nicole. Now you have a much bigger role. You're the sporting director. What, in terms of the coaching side, how are you trying to build that chemistry quick? Because you know some of the people, you've had connections, but it's a whole new thing.
Yeah, I mean, with everything, it's a team effort, right? So we need a coaching team. You know, I'm a big believer of getting people in roles that they excel and enjoy, and then they'll be able to take that and just be the best that they can be. And so I've been incredibly fortunate to be able to bring in somebody like a Coach Tom Paczynski, who I've worked with for over 15, 16 years in this soccer community. So, and then Coach Nikki and Coach Kerry as well that have come in. Coach Luca obviously is working with A1 and A2. So it's a team effort. I'm like I said, my leadership style is to build a team of people. Find out what they do really well, and then empower them and equip them to just go do that with excellence. And I think that we see that every day in the training environment, from the A1 crew down to the A2 as well.
You get the job. You know, you hear from Jessica, like, you're the choice, you're our person, you're going to lead the sporting side. And like that moment, other than just being excited and, oh my God, thank God, after all this stress, I actually get the gig. But when you talk about all those coaches you have on your staff, what were some of those initial thoughts of, I know I want A, B, and C out of my staff because maybe you have certain strengths and you knew you want people who have complementary strengths, but what were some of those sort of top things you wanted out of your staff in terms of making sure as a group you had everything you needed?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I believe in that we lead with relationships, and so I wanted people that are going to look at every single athlete on both teams, that we look at them as humans first. We want to love them right where they're at, meet them where they're at, see what their needs are, and then help them just to learn and grow. We know that sports is fantastic for life lessons, and that's what we want to do. So I wanted to hire people that understand the relationship side of that, to build rapport with players and understand that we're a part of their journey. We're one piece of the puzzle, we're not everything. And so getting to know the players and having a staff that leads with that first is incredibly important to me. And then, like I said, obviously Tom is more of the first assistant, so his skill set of strategy, he's been a long time assistant coach, so he understands what that looks like from a practical level. And then just Coach Nikki and Kerry with their exceptional backgrounds in playing at a really high level, and just being able to bring what they bring on a day-to-day basis.
and you and Mandy were on with the show with Mark back in the winter when you came on initially, and you sort of knew the roster then, or to some degree, and you mentioned even coming on and having that chance to sort of do some of that recruitment and roster building with Nicole. But then, you know, you've actually now been with them for a couple weeks in person, so you kind of have those stages of generally knowing the roster, officially knowing the roster. You also got to put some finishing touches on the roster by the time you got the full gig. But how have they shown actually in camp? You had the scrimmages a couple days ago. How have they shown compared to your expectations? Anyone that sort of jumped out, or even as a group, things they've shown that maybe you didn't expect, or any of those first sort of realizations of, sure, we thought we'd be good at this, but then they showed this, or anything like that?
Wow, that's a layered question. So, yeah, I think Nicole had done a great job getting the roster started, and then between the two of us, and then she faded out a little bit on the back end, and just knowing that she wasn't going to be there. So again, just taking the lead on some of those final conversations, but spent a lot of time on the phone talking to people like Addy and Katie, and just again, yeah, when they've come in now and you see them in real life, not just over the phone or in a small box on some of our virtual calls. I'm just incredibly impressed with every one of them, but I also want to just acknowledge the returning players and the veteran players have really been fantastic in being really open-minded, having a growth mindset, really helping me to know like this is the way that we do things, and collaborating in that, right? And so I'm not shocked, but I'm really thankful for that, because they're incredible young women, and just being out there day to day with them is a privilege.
So talking about getting prepped for some of these opponents, this is a new league to you. Obviously, there's going to be players from, you know, familiar places and people you've interacted with, but it can be tough. I mean, game tape is not always easy to find on these clubs, and the tape itself, if people have had watch parties here, it's not always a field level angle of a dad. So I do wonder for you in prepping for these new teams, and obviously you're focusing on what Aurora does, but how confident are you in your ability to like get actually prepped for these teams and get enough solid tape? And the rosters, of course, will be new as well. So I wonder how much you focus on that and what you can take in your prep.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I challenge our staff on a regular basis, and probably the entire organization, is that our dreams have to be bigger than our past experiences, and we can't keep looking back. This is a new team, it's a new squad, it's a new coaching staff, everything's new, and we're moving forward.
Yeah.
We're going to take what we did in the past, and we can't take anything for granted. So yeah, some of that is actually, I think in some ways, like a good thing to not really know too much. You know, right now we're focused in-house on what we want to do, how we want to play, and to be honest with you, we want opponents having to change to what we're doing and bringing, versus always adapting to what other teams are doing. We know that we have lofty goals, obviously, of, you know, winning the conference again, winning that USLW championship. So we're doing everything with a long-term view of how we prep for playoffs in that championship game. And so all along the way, the outcomes are not necessarily as important as the process, and making sure that every day we're creating an environment where they can compete at the highest level and really get us to that final game of the season.
Yeah. Speaking of that, because I joked, I mean, we watch a lot of bad streams of soccer, and both college can be a little better, but you never know what you're going to get with a stream trying to follow. You have to try and do it for tape, you have to do it to watch. So I know you consume a lot of streams, and I want to know, what are your biggest pet peeves of game tape, like whether you're not getting something out of the tape, they're not moving the camera, what, you know, we could go through all of it, but what are the things that get you riled up, wishing you could get more out of that game film?
The best one is when a goal is scored and the tape's still on the other end of the field, looking at the goalkeeper. That's always a good one. The other one is the squeaky wheel, right, when it's like
I haven't had that. Yeah.
Totally hear that. And then there's always that one person in the crowd that thinks they know a lot more about the game than they should. And you're kind of like, oh, you're one of those verbal processor people.
There's always a dad.
Tell us everything.
There's always a dad around, am I right? There's always a dad, right?
Don't need to get into that totally.
Well said. I said it. You didn't
The
say
thing
it.
is, you know who you are. So, it's like, thank you. That's more information than I needed to know. But other than that, look, we're just thankful. I think a lot of the times we're accepting women's soccer. Sometimes we're just grateful for certain things, but we all know that we need to elevate the standard and take it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And I think for that, we're really thankful for our partnership with Fox 9 Plus as well, and bringing that. And I think that we've really set the bar as an organization, and now a lot of people are trying to match that and get to that next level, and it's nice to be ahead and pioneering the way.
We're at that point in the season where you have games later this week. Aurora 2 has already had a game, but on the Aurora 1 side, we sort of had those stages of getting to see you at the open training, which was, because it's still your own internal squad, it's like 8-a-side, 9-a-side, whatever. We get to see a little bit of full-sided in those scrimmages a couple days ago. So we've seen little snippets of the squad. You've been seeing them for almost 2 straight weeks of what players bring. So this is a segment, this is the part of the show where we have to go all hype. We need you to tell us, because we've only been able to see little pockets, you need to tell us a few of the players we should be getting hype about for this season, and you're not allowed to say all of them. That's cheating. And don't worry, throughout the season, we will hype absolutely everyone on this team, so don't worry. And you will be able to in post-game interviews, so don't worry. So who are like a few or a handful or anyone that's been really jumping out either for their leadership or their ability or anything?
Well, you put me on the spot there, right? Because that's like asking me who my favorite child is.
Deion Sanders has a favorite. He ranks them publicly.
There you go. So be like Dion. I'll be me. He can be so that's perfect. I'd probably go with some that maybe not getting a lot more airtime necessarily. So Khalees Barton's come in, phenomenal leader, great person, super inclusive, just a real encourager. I don't know if you saw the scrimmage at the weekend, but she's just somebody from the sidelines is just the consummate team player, wanting the team to succeed and really cheering people on, and that's something that really grabs the attention of everybody. Oh my goodness, now you're gonna we've got Addy Wickers in the crowd, so it's hard not to say.
It's totally private. There's nothing about this that'll be disseminated.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing again is this is a platform for players, maybe even the collegiate game, that haven't even been heard of before, and that's the whole point of the Aurora system, is creating this opportunity and this platform for players to be able to come in and be highlighted and showcased, and we're excited for players that may not have got that notice in other environments. But I don't think you can get me to really call out individual players. I'd rather not do that because they all, they each have their own skills and abilities, and to be, pushing the ticket sales, like buy a ticket and come and see them in action, or turn on Fox 9 Plus and watch them, and then send me who you think your favorite players are, and then we can have a conversation.
She turned it back. I love that. So, Coach, when we spoke to you in the spring, you talked about, I asked you a little bit about your past. You played for the Doncaster Bells. Shout out to them. And so I know you had people like Julie Chip Chase, aka Chippy. Did my research, you guys. And Hope Powell. Also, you mentioned people who helped you growing up in terms of developing, seeing that you have a possibility in the future in the game. You have a really big role now. There's very few people who get to have this role in any team across the United States. There's only so many people who get to do this. And so I just wonder for you, I'm sure when you got this job, you reflected a bit on you coming up and how different it is. I wonder what that means to you and kind of how you see that role and kind of carry that for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a privilege to be in this position. I'm really thankful and grateful for that. You mentioned some of those people. I think when the Queen passed away last year, I was actually quite taken aback of how emotional I was. But I think growing up as a girl, even seeing somebody like that, like being on the throne for so long, was really that reflective moment of like the Queen and Margaret Thatcher and certain people in certain other areas, not just sports,
right.
Of women in leadership, and I was really thankful for that. I think even in more recent times, I'm actually really thankful for my mom, because she really went through a lot, and just seeing her as a really strong woman too. And so I want to be able to be that role model that people can look to, and everybody's journey and path is different to getting to where they're at, and I'm just very thankful for that. But yeah, very reflective and thankful for sure, and also just makes you realise that you're actually quite old now.
Shout out to the moms. Hi, Mom. What's up?
All right, Colette Montgomery, everybody. Thank you, Coach. All right, let's bring up Addy Weichers and Katie Duong.
Welcome. Give a round of applause.
Let's go.
All right, welcome.
Thank you.
We're going to ask you which coach you would start. She's not listening. No. Thank you guys so much for joining. Addy, we joked in the first year, it was really kind of funny because the Aurora team was, and I don't know if this is generational with the age of the Aurora players, but for all the fans who are old and washed up, it was very much a Mighty Ducks 2 thing where half of the teams from Minnesota, half of the teams from like around the country, like the Utah contingent of you guys. Now we have more from Utah as well. Now it's even more mixed. We have players with international backgrounds, and so it's fun for us to get to see it. Talk about just the mix of returners, and there is the core of you all have been here 3 years, and just talk about how the early chemistry has been and connecting between all those different groups of players now.
Yeah, so I think it's been really fun because I have been here since the beginning. It's been fun to see the team evolve with those new players as well as returners. It's nice because we, like you said, do have a core of people who have been here, so they know how things work and what kind of things work versus don't work, but also like the way it should be done. And so it's been really fun and refreshing just to learn from other players, different personalities and different styles for this next new year.
Did you feel some added pressure this season coming in, knowing it's like, okay, yeah, we have maybe a third of the team of returners now, which is a little lighter than last year. It's even more new players. Did you feel sort of added weight on those shoulders of yours?
It was not as much pressure. I think it was more just like, dang, I'm missing my friends.
They're all playing pro at it.
They're too good. But yeah, no, just really excited for them and excited to meet good people.
Cool. Katie, I've been covering you since you were a gopher back in 2019, which feels that long ago, as it is. You started for the U20 national team in 2020 on a team loaded with phenomenal pros. You had 3 years at Stanford where, you don't have to say it, I can say it. I don't think you necessarily got as much game time as, maybe a player of your caliber would deserve, but I know how ambitious you are for yourself and your goals that you have for yourself. What ultimately made you think Aurora would be a good fit for you to meet those goals?
Yeah, I think Nicole had reached out a while ago, and then Colette reached back out a few weeks ago. I'd heard great things about it from Kenzie, Ari, a couple other people that I'd played with at Minnesota. Heard it was a super professional environment, and I've been super impressed so far with just how everything's run, and also how welcoming everyone is, and I'm just super excited to be here.
Well, you get drafted by Portland, you're in camp with them, you've trained with them in summers forever. There's literally random pictures people can find of you just being in training pictures as you're 19 and whatever. But you at Stanford, when you're not necessarily having a role that you would hope for, one of the things I always think of when players are in these high pressure, stressful, really, really tough collegiate situations is maybe not getting a ton of game time. How much was just knowing you could be in a place where you just get out, get game time, get tape, be in a place where you can just go out and maybe also have more fun, get out, rip it up, just go out there and shred. How much was that part of the thinking too?
That definitely was a big part of it. I think we have had a couple scrimmages so far, and also just getting to play a lot in practices. I was actually talking to Colette about it the other day, but just being able to play and have fun playing, I think has been super refreshing being here, and something I'm super grateful for.
Probably the only topic that's as more annoying for equal time Twitter followers than me hyping up Katie Duong is me stressing about whether Addy will play holding mid or center back. Addy, I think it's okay to say, because this is not being streamed and this was at an open scrimmage, you're playing some center back in the scrimmages. What's it been like for you to sort of adjust to playing that? And obviously you play center back in college at Utah State. What's it been like for you to play center back here without your collegiate center back partner, Kelsey Kafusi, longtime beloved Aurora player, but for you to settle in with a new center back partner? What's that been like?
Definitely a time of growth. Just I think the way we play in college is super specific and unique, and so it's given me opportunity to grow and sharpen up different parts of my game or look at things differently and working with other people, taking different strengths they have and trying to implement that. So it's been really fun and exciting. Like I've been Nicole has been really interesting to watch because I feel like me and her are similar with some of our strengths and just the way she builds out of pressure and different things where it's just really admirable and things that I want to implement as well.
During the scrimmages, all of my observations that I say to Mark if we're watching a game together, I'm sure the most boring thing of all time. But I was thinking of how Kelsey Kafusi was such a pace player, like had such insane recovery speed, and crazy 40-yard recovery runs to cover for another defender. And as I was watching the game, I was kind of thinking, I think you might have to play that role, like of your center back pairing. Nicole is like such a good, from Nicole Norfolk from Valparaiso, I think will be an unbelievable center back. But of that back four, it feels like maybe you will have to be that sort of recovery player. Is even something like that?
The question is, are you fast enough?
But even the difference of being the player that's used to sort of maybe the charge forward center back versus the one that has to be ready to make that recovery run. Are things like that sort of things that you're adjusting to too?
Yeah, definitely. I think this last year, even actually maybe like a couple years to be honest, but I haven't been the faster center back, which has taught me a lot about like how I can use my other strengths or do different things. And so I've learned a lot from Kelsey, and she was so fun to play with, and it was nice to have that safety net because dang, that girl is very quick at this. And so, anyways, it's just been really cool to, kind of like what I was talking about, learn different ways to, recover or use my body or be physical, so it's
Also, those long balls that you said them as well, but Kelsey's got the long balls you have to replace. We have to ask you, Katie, you're new to the squad, and I don't know, so this is a multiple part question because we have to break into celebration talk. Fans, cue your applause, but have you seen the past years where the freedom of celebration, have you seen the content of like all them getting to do coordinated dances and all that goes into that for Aurora?
I have not seen that. I have heard about Morgan Stone's on-field picture celebration, but I haven't seen that.
Honestly, the fact that you are not aware of this is a failure of Mariah Lynn, a failure of all the returning players.
Well, the follow-up is, this is, so no, we didn't ask Colette this. Colette seems to be presenting the vibe, and I think they've said they're totally cool with celebrations as well. It'd be hard to stop at this point, wouldn't it? But,
we're getting a double thumbs up, so we'll see what we get.
Yeah, they have the fun angle. But no, there's a tremendous amount, and I'm sure in college you don't get away with doing that. Literally 5-8 people coordinated things. So, knowing it now that we presented it to you, do you have ideas? Or have you ever been on a team where you were allowed to just fully do a celebration? I don't think college lets you play like that.
I feel like we did small stuff during college, but now that this is on my radar, I'm gonna have to start brainstorming.
Do you have a favorite goal celebration you've done before?
I'm not a huge celebrator, to be honest.
Point to the name on the back.
I'm gonna have to work on this a little bit.
Listen, for fans who have not been to the scrimmages or fans who have not watched Katie before, Katie is going to be scoring goals and dropping assists this season, so you do actually have to be prepared. So, this is not streamed, but just into the ether, Mariah Wynn in the past has really claimed that Selly captain role. I'm honestly flabbergasted. She hasn't made every new player watch every single clip on Instagram.
I think if you talk to Brenna at the team, she'll send you a supercut or something.
Okay.
It's great.
It exists somewhere. We need you to be prepared for sure. And I am curious, Colette punted this question, obviously, she was being such a coach. You two are not allowed to punt this question. Who are some players during training camp? And again, not mentioning a name does not mean they haven't also been shredding it. who are some players that coming in, and Addy, maybe like new players you hadn't seen before, or Katie, you came in and hadn't played with players, who are some players you think have just really shown out, either in a certain part of their game or just in whatever aspect you've seen on the field? Let's give some players some hype, baby, let's go. So who are some that you've noticed?
I would say I've had a lot of fun playing with Jill. She's just so fast out there and such a gritty player. I think she's been a lot of fun to play with. Honestly, everyone has their own strengths that are like so fun to play with, and we've tried a lot of different people in the midfield. I think Gianna, I feel like I'm finding some chemistry with both of the racks as well. But yeah, honestly, there's so many people.
Talk about, Katie, you're new, you've been here a little while, and even we were at Media Day and I was trying to get player interviews, and it's still tough with the raps. And I have a question for you as a new player, and maybe Addy, if you have perspective on how the new players are doing. Eli and Kat are the two that look alike, unless I'm even mixing that up, but I think.
You're right.
So,
Yep.
of the new, can you tell the raps apart, and especially like Eli and Kat are the two who really look like twins?
Yes. Outside of soccer for sure, because I know Eli has her little.
Okay, I was gonna say, what are your tricks? Yeah.
Yeah, and then Kat.
It's easier outside of soccer.
It's
you're
easier
saying.
out. Yes. In soccer though, I feel like it's been easier because of the positions.
Yes,
but,
that's what makes it easy for us.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely learning.
That's a good tip for all the fans out there. When you're at TCO and you're 200 yards away from Kat and Eli, look for the one that has the scar on their lip. So that's a good tip. That's a good tip for us too.
I have a mole right here. It's always helped everyone.
We can use that. Wait a second, Addy. Somehow you pro'd your way out of that question. Who's been showing up? Who's been showing up in
They
training
do
camp?
media training, by the way.
Yeah. By the way, teams, stop training these players in media training. Okay. This is, let them come out, get authentic, get the clicks. Think about the clicks. So, but Addy, who are some players that have shown out? Even honestly, Jill did look awesome in the scrimmages. I couldn't believe how like tip-top shape she was. Like having not been on an organized team, she apparently is shredding it as a ceramics teacher in Utah. But who are some players that have stood out to you?
Jada, again, she does the coolest things I think I've ever seen, and it's so effortless. Like, she just will do this touch. I didn't even know that was possible. And then I think it's been fun to see Rami Rapgirl get a lot more confidence this year. She's playing really well. I think also Taylor Shell. I think that's her last name.
Not a new player.
It is confirmed. Yes.
I know her first name. Anyways, but she has a really, I think, good defensive presence as well. But everyone stands out, and I'm excited for you all to see them.
So you both met Gianna Joe, right? Who's playing in the midfield, really technical. Yeah, it was exciting to see. Definitely, when you talked about the varied skill sets, watching the scrimmages, you could see like the difference in what she brings. And then, Jill, I guess we have to call Jill the ceramic freight train now. I don't know. Yeah, she was
For those who didn't follow in year one, her nickname was the Freight Train. So we're just going to build
kind of bullies people on the wing, I guess. But no, I do want to ask you as one other thing. We got to ask you about the coaches. Talked about Coach Colette's playing career. Who's subbing in first of these coaches?
We're under roster crunch. You need to throw.
Ignore the gender roles of you. I know you have other coaches.
Roster crunch. You need to throw one of your coaches onto the field. Tie game. 85th minute.
Oh, you're giving them. Yeah. Who steps in?
So, jeez,
Who do you?
they're all rubbish.
See how she matched terminology for you, Colette? She even matched terminology for you. Wow.
Colette's fingerprint on the team is already so firm. It's getting British as hell in here.
That's third year comfortable status as a veteran serving a cat joke.
Addy just risking the armband. Just risking the armband.
It's a video of a little boy doing Wonderful. I'm quoting a video, I swear. I've never seen any of them play. From a little kid. He's like, what team? Like, who's your favorite? Oh, Man United. None of them. They're all rubbish.
Fair. Okay. We don't have TikTok. We don't know what they want. Thank you guys very much.
All right, Addy Weichers and Katie Duong, everybody.
First team opens on Thursday. You can watch the game here with me.
Let's bring up Sarah Rosenblum.
Give her a hand, Sarah.
When Sarah interviewed to be an assistant for Aurora 2, I highly doubt they said, and by the way, if Mandy's busy, you have to literally like go to a bar and be on a show with two
They
names.
did.
They did?
Told me that.
Oh, okay. That's good. Wow, that's a really good hiring
We were
team.
very prepared.
Really well planned. But no, we have Sarah Rosenblum here, assistant for Aurora 2. She's coaching at Hopkins now, back at her alma mater, which is so cool. Had coached out in St. Francis. But Sarah, just talk to us about how you're obviously Minnesota native, but how did the connection with Aurora 2 come about? How did you become one of the first Aurora coaches? That's the nickname for Aurora 2. We'll get into
Cool, I
that.
love that. Well, when Aurora was created, I was living in New York City, and I don't know exactly how I found out about it, probably Instagram or you guys or something like that. But I called my mom and I said, Mom, I need $200 because I'm going to invest in this women's soccer team that's going to be built in Minnesota, and I have $200, you have $200, like, let's do it. So I watched from afar, and I was so excited to see that something that I hadn't seen before being built in my hometown. When I decided to move back just about a year ago, I reached out to Nicole because I was like, all right, I'm going to start to self-actualize. Like, Aurora is my future. This is my place. I believe in what they believe in. Without knowing for sure that I would really fit in here, but I felt it. And I helped out at tryouts.
Yeah.
And I met Colette there, I met Mandy there, and a couple of weeks after tryouts, Nicole called me and asked if I would be interested in having a conversation about what was happening with the second team. So a little bit of self-actualization, a long time commitment to the club, a deep love of women's sports and the program. I mean, the organization as a whole, the values of the organization are astonishing. And so I'm incredibly proud to wear the crest and be part of the team. Yeah,
Is it
very
maybe the first coach who's a community owner?
I might be.
So congrats to Sarah. Yeah, wow. Holding
We're
it
going to
close.
deeply fact check that.
But
I don't know.
and also just a credit to the Blackheart. I met Sarah a couple of years ago when they came in. I think it was the first year of Aurora, maybe it was multiple years ago. And so we tried to get an interview going for their coaching gig at the time, but it is a full circle thing. Minnesota soccer does not expand too big to not stay connected. Yeah, so that's a very fun thing.
I'm curious from the tryouts because Aurora 2 has a ton of players from those tryouts. Mark and I have been at the tryouts since year one. Even year one, actually, a pretty good chunk of players like came from there. But I think the player pool at the tryouts has really matured over time. I really found like the pool at this year's tryouts super, super interesting. It was a very interesting mix to see who showed and who didn't.
Yeah.
When you were there, I mean, there's a really good chunk of Aurora 2, at least a handful plus, that came from those open public tryouts.
Yeah, definitely.
When you started training now, were there certain players that you remembered their game from back then?
Absolutely. Well, it's actually a really sweet, the one who sticks out in my mind is maybe not the one you would expect from just our local tryouts. We have a girl named Carly, she's here from Texas. And we met at tryouts. She was assigned to my team that I was overseeing, and we were just chatting about soccer, nothing specific, nothing special. But when I left tryouts, I thought to myself, and it was before I knew I was going to be part of the team, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I wish I would ask this girl what her last name is, because I liked her so much. I just wanted to know what she was doing and like maybe be part of her life in some like weird random way. And then when I got on the field, I mean, we had weeks and weeks of Zoom meetings, and I saw her like little square on the screen, and I'd be like, remember me? And then
Quick wave.
yeah, and we like would see each other, but you know, we're with a group of people. You can't like have a little kiki, as I like to call it. But when we got on the field, we just like went up to each other, and Carly looked at me and she said, as soon as tryouts ended, like I told my dad, like, oh gosh, I really hope I see Sarah again one day. And I felt the same. And so it just is like really sweet. So that's a perfect example. Yes, there are a handful of players that I'm just super happy to be on the field with now.
Well, and let's give away the secret. Is this Carly Torres?
It would be.
Okay, so this is goal scorer Carly Torres.
First ever A2 goal, yes.
So let's give a shout. That's good. Michelle, by the way, speaking of Colette's pet peeve, the goal just escaped that pet peeve. So you can see the ball go into the net, and then after that, some chaos ensues, and that is why the goal clip is as short as it is. But yeah, magical. So, speaking of that opening win, you get that opening win. We now have Aurora 2, 1-0, baby, undefeated. I love it. I was watching it. It felt early on like there was some very expected sort of new team playing its first game vibes.
Absolutely.
Sort of to feel it out. If folks watched Aurora in its first year, it had very similar vibes to me, I think, as that sort of Aurora 1 playing Green Bay. First time the players are in front of all those fans in TCO, and you could tell they were just like, oh my God, there's 5,000 people here. This had like a similar sort of, we are starting to play together vibe, but two really quality goals. Like the team pulls off the hard-fought win. What kind of things do you think the team did well to sort of pull out that result?
Well, I think there's a lot of pressure on the team in general. Maybe we didn't have 5,000 fans, but we could certainly feel the pressure of 5,000 plus fans there. I think they just relied on each other. And even having had 2 solid weeks on the field, maybe just over, they still are getting to know each other and finding ways to trust each other and figuring out how their teammates like to receive the ball or, like to move. And so I think they just sort of leaned on each other, not even necessarily in a skills way, but in a way that we are here continuing to build the legacy that is Aurora. And sometimes we just need to look over at each other and see that we're in the same jersey, and that was for sure enough to get us through on Sunday.
I love it. It's a new league. It's a challenge because for us, we're trying to preview all the people playing this summer. 6 new teams. For people who don't know, in the UPSL, Midwest West. In the women's side, there is no Midwest East, but there is still a Midwest West. That's always makes me laugh, but it's wonderful. But there were only 6 squads last year, and only a couple really even promoted themselves, so it wasn't easy to even, if you wanted to watch the team from last year, there's not that much game tape.
No,
and then there's 6 new teams, including a reserve team of 1. That's another wrinkle for folks. Tonka Fusion Elite has a 1 and 2 team, so that's a unique.
In the same conference, in the same league.
American soccer, baby. But the question is just, it's a new league, it's a new role for you. Obviously, you do club and high school things. Just how do you try to prepare for the other teams? I mean, now maybe there's a game for each of them. Do you just try to wait for their first game and get scraps? Talk about that process as a coaching staff.
Sure. So, preparing for the first game, and I still think now the priority will continue to be on our internal team. I for sure looked up the stats that I could find for our game on Sunday, who scored their goals, who had their assists, which was information I couldn't find, but I did look for. Couldn't find film.
I could try to text someone. It's tough.
Well, if you get it, I'm happy to receive. But really, the focus is going to be on what we need to do for the next, I would say the first 3 games. I'm less concerned with what the other team is bringing and what we need to tighten up. Because again, while we've all been chatting for a handful of months now, we've been on the field together for 14 days. And that's not even 14 training days. So we're just focused on building that trust, figuring out exactly where the best place for all of our players is on the field. I did watch our game film, which was rough. It was a little bit of, felt like I was on a sailboat. But that's okay. I did get a lot out of it, and I have looked up Granite City and who we play Saturday and tomorrow. I have looked up some stats, but it's pretty much about, you can see who scored goals, that's about it. So we're gonna mark those people real tight.
They are getting better this year. For folks who want to follow Aurora too, thankfully we're seeing more and more of those opponents stream on UPSL is almost all of them are on YouTube at this point, what we've seen. So when you're looking for those, we'll be posting them, but and also Wednesday we'll have a kind of pregame kickoff from here, or tomorrow, for the home game. Tomorrow, get ready, Sarah. But no, I did want to ask you, Sarah, so of Aurora too, I'm gonna ask you before the players, which coach is subbing in first?
Absolutely me.
Wow, these are shot. Mandy,
Absolutely.
you didn't come tonight, and now shots have been fired. This is what happens when you don't come to the show.
Keeper coach Morgan Philibert is right here.
Wow, this is just brutal.
Well, I'm
Tell us
going
why.
off
Tell us
this-
why, Sarah.
Okay,
Explain-
I'm going off
talk
the
us through it.
scenario where you said there are 5 minutes left, scored 1-1.
Right.
I kind of want to
I
know who
can-
can play 90. I kind of
Yeah.
want to know who can play 90.
Let's do a different scenario.
Wait, that would be, yeah.
Actually, name your scenario of why you would go in.
Okay, I can do 2 things really well, and one of them is finish. And so if we're tied and we have 5 minutes left and you put me in, I will get that goal. I will make it happen.
Oh my God, this is such striker
Far as I know.
mentality. This is like the greatest striker mentality demonstration I've ever
As
seen.
far as I know, the roster is open for
I haven't talked to Mandy about that.
I have been trying since year 1. I've been pitching player coach. When Jenny Clark got hired as a coach, I was like, oh, Jenny looks like we're light at center back. You know, Addy's playing holding mid. Looks like we need a center back. It's like I've been trying to get player coach happen for so long.
When we make an equal time the soccer tournament team for the women's 7-on-7, we know
Yeah,
who
you
to
call
go
me.
to.
Now
But
we know.
I can't do the 90 minutes. And also, if we're done,
this
if we need
yeah.
to protect the lead, I would say anybody else on staff besides me because I cannot defend.
Wow,
So-
and she'll only finish and she will not track back. This is a striker, ladies and gentlemen. We have a 9 in our midst. I love this. I'm curious too, Sarah. You know, we try to cover multiple layers of the game. We went to like a low D3 school. We cover D2. We cover a ton of D1. We cover all these summer leagues. Summer leagues in general have a really cool mix of players. You know, players coming from different pathways, community players, young, old, all that stuff. But I think even the UPSL, even more than the other summer leagues, is sort of the epitome of just ultimate mix of
Yeah.
15-year-olds here, 30-year-old there, D2, JUCO, like D1,
Yeah.
all those things. When you see, you know, things like that, you know, there's so many different players on this roster, the Aurora 2 roster. Talk about sort of the value that brings of just people with such different experiences, and then if there's anyone you want to shout out, you can outdo Colette, you can go direct, you can shout people if you want.
I think that the mix of players that we have on our team and that this league has in general is really special because, I mean, similar to what Colette was saying, we're giving people another platform to be seen where they might not have gotten a look based on a college or even, we have players that didn't like collegiately.
Yep.
That are ballers, that are working hard, that are committed, that are showing up at 6:30 in the morning. We train at 7. You know, our players are there no later than 6:30. So these are kids who love the game, and like it doesn't. You know, you can play college soccer. You don't have to. You can still. There's life after college soccer, and before college soccer. Totally, we have someone who's not in college yet. So I just think it's like a really special opportunity to see how many different types of people can execute at this level. And I will say I'm going to take Colette's lead and not just tell you across the board our entire team is amazing. It's to be put in a position as a relatively young person and asked to build something, especially within an organization that is already so solidified in the community and everybody has incredibly high expectations for. I mean, we're talking about pretty amazing kids.
Well, we've been so hyped for Aurora 2 since the announcement. They're playing literally, 4 blocks away at Concordia. The first home openers tomorrow.
Yep.
From the beginning, and sort of like you mentioned, these are players carrying that burden. They're, carrying that Aurora badge, and they have so many different backgrounds. They're such good ballers, but they, that game they played against Twin Stars, the fan numbers I'm sure were in maybe the dozens or whatever instead of the thousands. And that's why we're so psyched for like those home games at Concordia. We want people to show up for these players that are carrying that burden and bringing like this team to this league. So it's just so cool to have players willing to carry that burden for sure.
Yeah. Sarah, last thing. I know we want to ask you, you've been involved in semi-pro game. I don't know much of the context except that you were involved in helping with Brooklyn FC, a women's team, get going over there.
Yeah.
So you've done this in a different way. I didn't even look up what league it was. I want you to tell us. But talk about your experience doing that, because you were a part of founding something. There's so many new teams going on, and now you're here with Aurora. Talk about the past.
Yeah, sure. So when I was living in Brooklyn, I was working with a club called Brooklyn City FC. And I worked with a woman named Kim Wyatt. She is the head coach of the NYU men's team. And Amy Marin, who's I believe her title now is associate head coach at St. John's. And we built the BCFC WPSL team together. And I mean, Kim was an amazing person to work with. Last time we spoke, I think she said, "Are you sure you want to stay on the women's side?" Which is cool that she thought I could do both. But I learned so much. That was before I had coached collegiately, and working with her and with Amy was the first time I saw kids that you don't necessarily have to convince them to come and work hard. And they gave me a chance, not having ever coached at that level. They gave me a couple chances on the field, and I got to run sessions, and then, wow, it really blew my mind. So
helped you see the path forward.
Helped me see the path forward. Yeah, then even connected me with the woman I worked for collegiately. Right. So I owe them a lot. That was also a super fun experience. I worked with a lot of girls who played collegiately on the East Coast, but I'm glad to be back here in Minnesota doing it now.
Yeah, how cool. Thank you so much, Sarah. We're so excited. That home game is tomorrow. Let's get ready.
We're ready. Let's bring up Tylar, Sayles, and Sienna Latta, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of the players carrying that burden, leading this new team, welcome.
There we go. Yeah, we're louder than you are. Tyler, it's awesome to see. One of the very cool things about Aurora 2 coming around, we've had these people who've been part of the club, training players like yourself for years, and it's been a benefit. And for people who watch the games, you can see teams that are less resourced and less deep than Aurora is. And so just being able to train and do all those things is so crucial to the success. But you weren't getting to shine on the field. Now you get to. And so I wonder for you all, like, you have people continuing, you have Bayless, you have Olivia Groutman, you have B. Chang, who was also a training player last year.
Maya Dempsey.
Oh, Maya Dempsey. So, and the Hamlin connection. Talk about it getting to be an on-field thing for you and new opportunity and something more than just being a part of the background, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I was with the team since the first season as a training player my first year, and then decided to come back my second year to be a training player because of how awesome the experience was. You know, I think that experience in particular really helped me grow as a person off the field, because it was a different position for me to be in, you know, not getting minutes, stuff like that, having a different role. But I feel like I grew so much through it, like that adversity of just playing a different role than I'm used to in my life. But I loved my first year there, I loved my second year there, and then when I heard about Aurora 2, and then Mandy, and then the coaching staff, I was so excited. I was like, yes! And then being able to just be on this team and kind of continue the same culture as Aurora 1, being a veteran, I'm just very grateful to be in the position and just to be on the field now and kind of having an impact the way that I always wanted to have an impact. So.
Was there something interesting about like talking to Nicole in that first season when she said she wanted to have like several training players and the value it would provide? There were times during training camp, I know for sure you all are the only reason like actual training could happen. You know, you being there, busting your ass day in and day out. Was there something almost like freeing about knowing a defined role versus being like a player where maybe the role isn't as big as you want and you're like, God, I know I could be starting, why am I not starting? Versus a role where it has those clear expectation of, I agreed to be a training player, they offered that, I took it. Like, was there something almost like bizarrely like freeing about that?
It was such an interesting thing to go through, and I think that kind of grounded me at times of like, one, you did like say yes to do this, but you know, kind of feeling a bit more free in practice and like, you know, making mistakes because I wasn't fighting for a minute. So things like that of not being as hard on myself, I feel like, of like, you know, at the end of the day, like, you know, just kind of have fun with soccer. I think that was my biggest reason, was like reclaim your joy with the sport that you love, that type of thing. And I think there were some moments though where it was 6 a.m. lift and I had to get up and I was like, oh, I'm not fighting for minutes, but just continuing to like be there and show up and show them the type of person that I am, in the inside and out, even though I wasn't on the field.
Yeah. It's a unique role as an athlete. I mean, it's kind of like being like the 15th guy in the NBA playoff bench. Like, you're just there to hype them up, man.
Yeah,
Get in there, hype them up.
it was fun.
Look at Garza right now. But no, Sienna, you are coming off just your freshman year at Idaho State, right? Apologies to Sienna of my D1 coverage of Minnesotans. I missed covering Sienna this fall, so full apologies there.
Sienna didn't have a random aunt who DM'd us
It
to remind
takes
us.
someone It takes someone telling you.
Shout out to the moms, dads, aunts, and grandmas who DM us all this info. This is not a joke. That is where we get like half of our info.
But there's a lot of women playing D1 from Minnesota, so shout out to you, Sienna, for you were right away in the rotation at Idaho State, right? And then you come in here. How did you get connected to Aurora? What was it about it that drew it for you? Because there are college players too who, especially maybe after their first year, just need a break or want to do an internship or, you know, do all the other things. So how'd you get connected and what drew you here?
I guess my first real exposure with Aurora was for the past 2 summers I've been playing with Rochester WPSL.
Okay.
And I know I missed it the first year, but the second year we got a chance to scrimmage with the first team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They came out to see us. So that was the first time I actually like been in front of like the Aurora squad. And I was like, wow, these girls are amazing. So it's always been in like the back of my head. And then at the end of my freshman season, I had a talk with my head coach at Idaho State, Dustin Downey. And he was just kind of asking what my plans were this summer. And honestly, I wasn't quite sure. I was debating going back to Rochester, but it's kind of hard to make an hour-and-a-half drive every day there and back. But he brought up the idea of like, what if I got in contact with Aurora, for you just reached out, see what happens. And I already knew a couple of girls who had went to tryouts and were already on the second team.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great idea, just to reach out, see what happens. And then I heard from Mandy, had a few Zoom calls, and I was like, seems like a great environment, a good place to start, and I thought it was a wonderful idea.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious too, so in your first game, you were starting in central midfield. The 2 goal scorers for the Twin Stars, which was a great coincidence, were the 2 recent guests on Equal Time, so they connected on a set piece, but they're also 30-year-olds. You just came off your freshman season in college. That age gap was so funny. Twin Stars also have several teenagers in their rotations, like younger than you. I'm curious, you played in Rochester, you mentioned. I'm curious how different these summer league games feel than like a college thing where you're all within that exact age band. There's more structure, it's more institutionalized, all those things. But even just like the age chaos, the player sourcing chaos, do the games themselves actually feel that different, or is it just a thing that I talk about all the time with player ages, but actually the games are the games?
I feel like it depends. In some cases you don't really notice, and then you get off the field and you kind of think back and you're like, she looked a lot older than me. But a lot of the time it's kind of, you're just playing the game, and I feel like the people who are on the teams are on the teams for a reason. They can obviously play, and it's kind of just not something you're really thinking about at the time, but I guess reflective, you can notice it.
Yeah. Well, and I just think watching the games, I remember watching, and Michaela Bocan is the midfielder who headed the ball for that set piece goal. And when we had her on the show, she came from Bethel, another D3, my ex school. Apologies, Tyler, to the Pipers, mentioning Bethel on the stage. What a mistake. But even you do see sometimes the idea of, oh yeah, that's a literal adult person, and they might be going up against a 16-year-old or 15-year-old or an 18-year-old, and that's sort of when it shows. But are sort of the physical things maybe something you notice, or more just like you said, after the game you walk up, you're like, oh yeah, that's a mom with a family, and I'm a 19-year-old.
No, definitely. I feel like sometimes even on the teams I've been on, you don't notice how old people are. Especially on this team sometimes, I think people are my age and they're 5 years older than me. And I'm like, okay, I didn't see that coming. But physically, I think definitely sometimes they have more experience, know how to use their body in a different way than I do. And that's something you notice. Or sometimes there's just other ways. So there's things that they've learned how to do that I haven't learned yet. So it's also just a good learning experience at the same time.
Yeah.
Tyler, for you, talk about playing at Hamlin. Aurora 2 has a handful of people who are D3 players. You have like Eaton, who has played at St. Kate's. But just talk about, you've obviously trained with Aurora 1, but then getting to play, what does it mean to you? Does it affect kind of your goals and like how you see yourself in the game, getting to play against different talent? Just talk about that perspective. You only had one game, but I'm sure, they're coming fast tomorrow.
Yeah, I feel like, I was really grateful for my experience at Hamlin, and I think that I got back into the game when I was at Hamlin because I was coming back from a knee injury and being out for a while.
Yeah.
So being able to be in that environment and like start soccer again was incredibly beneficial for me in my game. Entering it being a COVID year when I started, so just like getting touches back on the ball was really helpful. And the MIAC was competitive. Like Mandy, who's on our team, was on St. Kate's, and she's a very talented player. But I do think, being on the summer team brings a different level of intensity that, your whole team is going to show up every day, and like your competitors are there to compete. So, same mindset of always wanting to be the best version of myself, but I think all my teammates kind of also have that same mindset too, which is, I think, a bit different than maybe sometimes in MIAC.
Yeah. Well, players have to do a lot of things. It's a liberal arts education. They're doing school.
Piano class.
They're in choir. Look, man, I was going from choir to football practice. I was fleeing literally.
Well, and Tyler, I know from talking to, so year one with Aurora, Kylie Coleman was the color commentator, and she coached you back in the day. And I remember being in the press box with her and her talking about like, oh man, Tyler is such a baller. Like during the before game training, you would be out there training with, anyone who wasn't in the 18, which is actually a decent sized group, and you're out there training. She's like, oh man, Tyler's such a baller. Like all those injuries, it sucks so bad. Like she could have done whatever. And injuries are such a brutal thing for players to deal with. But I also think there's so many reasons why players end up at the level they end up at. I feel like there's honestly almost so much overt pressure to like, if you don't go D1, it's this failure. If you don't go a certain type of D1, it's this failure. Like the amount of pressure on D1 women's soccer players and women's soccer players in college in general is insane. Like it's unreal when you talk to these players. And so even for you going through that experience of just getting back into the joy of the game, but now having such a mix of players on that Aurora too, what do you think it shows about like young players being able to see like it doesn't matter what route you choose, like if you can ball, you can ball?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's an important thing to learn when you're young. I think I definitely tried to learn that when I was a bit younger too, of suffering a knee injury at 15 and being out for like 3 to 4 years. So just being able to handle adversity, I would always want to encourage somebody younger than me that like, things happen for a reason, and like these things are going to make you so much stronger, not only on the field, but like as a person, I think. So always giving that message to my teammates, some of the younger ones who maybe are feeling down or something like that just keep pushing on. Like, the sun's going to shine in the morning, so just keep going.
Sienna, I'm going to get you guys with a curveball now. You've only met your teammates for a couple weeks, and this is more a first impression. You're going to be on a deserted island with one of them. Who do you pick?
This is even harder than who stands out in training. This is like a brutally difficult question, but I think you two are up for it.
Do we both have the answer?
Yeah, absolutely. We're expanding.
You can pick a coach if you want.
Whoa! We need to do more in-person shows. The level of honesty in this stage tonight, just like even only the 3 instances, is unbelievable.
I think Carly, again, might be a good choice. She has that positivity, and I think, if things were going wrong, I think she'd figure it out. Yeah. She'd make it work.
So you're not picking on who would, kill the boar for you to eat?
I don't know why I'm thinking of this person, but I'm thinking Mandy, only because the brief conversations that I've had, well, not brief, but, some conversations that I've had with her, she's incredibly versatile. Like, she did jujitsu, I think that's how I'm saying it, and she said she was a black belt, so if I need somebody out there for the bear or something like that.
That was more the question.
Mandy's also a literal All-American. She has the physical tools.
Exactly.
We can rep Mandy all the time.
I think that would be a good part.
And then the other question, either of you can answer this, but it's also, you must be having to get into these decisions. Who can and who cannot run the speaker in the locker room? Who gets the odds?
Maya Dempsey.
Is which one?
She cannot.
She cannot. What does Maya do? Country? What does she do?
Yeah. But
This
she's a huge
I
she's a huge Swiftie,
Oh.
which is fine.
Tyler
like,
shutting down Swift?
No, I'm not.
Oh, this is gonna be
It's like
broadcast.
the whole playlist, you know?
Right.
Yeah, cut this part out.
This is Piper on Piper, like, crying right now. This is, like, hard stuff. What about you, Sienna?
Well, currently we have Tyler on the speaker.
Oh.
And she's been doing a pretty good job so far.
Okay.
Sometimes forgets to charge it or bring it, but you know,
Yeah.
we're working on that.
It's in my car.
Worthwhile question.
Also, the stakes are slightly different. You all have like those drives, all the like the metro area drives, or I guess St. Cloud's a little longer, whatever. So yeah, I don't know if you're like running speaker the whole time, but you guys are just
It's not as bad as Aurora one. You know?
doing your like 7-hour trips across the Midwest. So you have a little
Yeah, it's
gentler
like an hour and a half.
time frame.
Very short.
Nice. And I'm curious from you two. Obviously, the new away kit. No one's here wearing it, but the vertical stripes. So the 3 kits, and you guys were rocking the away kit for game 1. For you 3, how would you rank those? And let's pretend you're able to wear the burnt orange or whatever keeper kit. How would you rank those 3? If you had to actually rock one out, if you had to wear one to tonight's show, and you had to rank, what would those choices have been?
I think I'd wear the home kit first.
Really?
That's my favorite.
I
The
don't
new
know,
helmet,
From last year, yeah.
It's just those sleeves. They're just kind of tight, you know, sometimes.
Oh, this is an
Around
arm.
my
That's a
huge
backdoor
arms.
arm grab right here. Tyler's giving out jacked.
That is not what I meant.
Well, we all knew what it meant. We all knew.
I actually really like the teal ones because the sleeves aren't tight. But the teal ones, and then I like the goalkeeper ones a lot. I like the color of them. And then I would have to put our home kits maybe at 3.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks so much, Tyler, Sayles, Sienna, Latta. Thank you so
Give him a
much.
hand. Guys, thank you so much for coming. Like we said, Aurora 2 starts tomorrow. We're going to do pre and post game. We know people will be here for that. I'm sure some people are going to just walk to the stadium straight up. We'll probably bring up, however much we're allowed to have modest things to give away. Might do that tomorrow as well. But yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much. Again, if for some reason anyone in the room tonight became a patron, come claim all your free stuff. Show us on your phone. Otherwise, thanks so much for coming out. Find us on Insta, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. Go follow the teams.
Yeah, girls.